Welcome, good morning, and welcome to Holistic Mystic, and the Inner Circle is here. And today we're talking about how, or the consequences, or the unexpected happenings of mystical experiences. You like that one? All right. I'm just going to ask you if you are on the, I'll mute you there just so you're not popping up on the video. So let's just start with a resonance, a connection, so that as we move into what I'm going to share, you may experience your own. I was going to say mystical experience, but what even is that, right? So we'll get into that in a moment. So let's just, I've already done my connection, but to include all of you that are here watching or may watch, all those that may hear with their physical ears and those that are open to listening with the ear of the heart, may you receive what you're here to receive. Meaning, here on this planet, here in this relative reality, here on this Zoom, here on this Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching from, however you're watching, or if you even just hear something shared from somebody that is here through that connection. Take a breath. And if I was sitting next to you, would I have heard your breath? If not, take another breath. Notice the shift in how you feel, how you're experiencing your physical. Do you feel a little low? Do you feel it in your eyes, your mouth? So take your intention just above your head. If you were to put your arm up, in fact you could, just at your fingertips, there is an aspect of you. It may not be in the body, but it is in your anatomy of your energetic body. So just make contact. Some may call it the soul star. And from this space, once you've made contact, and some of you may feel it just at the fingertips, once you've made contact, breathe from that point in through the head and rest inside the head. So do that. Take a breath in. And as you reach the inside of the head, expand with that breath. And as you inhale, bringing that breath and that intention back to the center of the head. Maybe do that once more. Just notice. If it's too much, just sit there. If you're okay to experiment, be curious, breathe out. Expanding the field of the head. On the next inhale, just staying in the head. Actually, let's just sit here for a moment and experience. Be curious. What's happening with your state of consciousness, how you sit in your physical body. How that is for you, no right or wrong. You may love this sense. You may be wanting to move on very quickly. Just accept either one, the love and the fear. So So now take another breath in. And as you breathe out, bring your awareness to your chest. And just sitting at the chest for a moment. Feeling that space. And on the next breath out, so wherever you are in your breath cycle, expand the chest from inside, and then bringing it back in with the in-breath. And you may want to just sit there with that, or you may want to try that again. Expanding the center of the torso. Now just sit and experience the state, the condition that you have provided for yourself. And if you've just joined us, you can continue with us. And on the next inhale, I want you to drop to the navel, the lower, just below the navel. Okay, so breathing down into that navel or lower abdomen. And just notice and be in that space for a moment. What's that like for you? No thinness, uncomfortable, interesting, curious, haven't been here before. Oh, this is a familiar friend space. Okay. So taking a breath, and on the next exhale, I want you to expand from inside your core out. And when you're ready, inhaling back into that space in the navel. And those of you that wish to just rest there, do so. If you'd like to, on the next breath, expand again, just to be curious. And then inhaling and just sitting and experiencing the state that you have just created within yourself. Just noticing, observing, you're not enjoying it or not enjoying it. You just are in it. You are it. Okay. And then when you're ready, you just come ready for our sharing, our connection, our somewhat of a, I could say teaching, but it's really just a sharing, okay? So notice how you are. How are you? How are you now? How were you before? Were you even conscious of how you were? I generally ask. Sometimes the absence of how you were gives you an indication that, oh, what is this space I'm in now? And I'm just assuming that there is a state change. Maybe not. Maybe there's no awareness or little awareness of it, and that's okay. So today, I've named this live the unexpected consequences of a mystical experience. And a couple of you I've shared in passing, so I'm R'ing better now, Lisa says, awesome. It's a very powerful little sequence, actually. It's a little piece of a process we do for those on the mystic path, right? So what is the mystic path? What is a mystic? What is a mystical experience? And I guess it depends on who you ask, yeah? So I'm a mystic. How I understand how I am may be different from how other people who identify as a mystic, call themselves a mystic, choose that, whatever, right? What do you think of when you hear the word mystic? What do you think of if you are a mystic? What makes you a mystic if you are one? And pop it in the chat. I can see wherever you're watching from, I can see the chat. So pop it in the chat. Might be a nice little conversation. But if we picture a mystic, we might imagine what? A yogini meditating on a mountaintop, or sitting in their hut on a hill, on a volcano in Hawaii. No? We might, Lisa's saying magical. What do you mean by magical? Or a nun living a monastic life? What's a contemporary nun look like? Somebody fervent in prayer, healing. Maybe a mystical poet like most of you may know of Rumi. Do any of you know of Kabir? Yeah. Kabir, if you don't know, you can look him up. I have an affinity with Kabir. He came in many years ago, over probably 15 years ago to me. And so these are poets. You know, there's Teresa of Avila, there's St. John of the Cross. There's all of these different, they're more Christian mystics. Right? There's Sufi mystics, there's Jewish mysticism, there's, you know, all the different religions and no religion. So is there a particular mystic that you know of? So as I said that, the chat says, experience to go with your desire and or vibration. To go where? If anywhere. Or nowhere. And everywhere at the same time. Right? All of these examples have something in common. What do you think that might be? If you know of these saints, yogis, yoginis, mystics, sages. Let me see this chat. I've got this chat going too, so let me just get that up. Someone who is connected to Source. Oh, you feel more grounded also. Someone who's connected to Source, possibly. Awareness of the experience. What experience? You're all correct, and right? You're all correct, and so these examples that I just said are generally removed from, or removed, or a long time ago, or you know, something you could only read of, maybe. How many of you envision a mystic, number one? And how many of you envision a mystic in the everyday experience of this relative reality, aka our daily life? Going to the shop, getting the mail, cooking dinner. Is that something that maybe you don't even experience that? So let me know that. You don't even think about mystics or mystical experiences. Or do you? Or do you? So what is a mystic? The answer to the question varies. But ultimately, if you ask me, and it is the desire, the devotion, the bhakti, the service to and with the beloved, what you may call God, source, great mystery. And so whether you necessarily have that, you may have a little glimmer of that. And many of you that, even that breath at the beginning, you may have felt expanded and had a little moment. Right? Maybe if you sat in that longer, possibly. If you've meditated and had some vision or elation, blissful, ananda experience. So what we call a mystical experience or even a mystic will depend on who's asking and who's viewing. But it's truth-seeking. All of our lives and our sharings and our teachings are the mystic truth, meaning we're looking from the seed of where all else sprouts. Have any of you seen my sprouting of the lotus lately? It's like I'm like, I want an animal, I want a creature, and I'm like, but I don't want to keep a fish in a little pond, and I'm going to get a turtle, but then I was like, is that cruel? So I'm having, because I've grown up with animals, always had animals. Carried them in my guinea pigs. I made a little bag and I would carry it around like you might carry your handbag. I carried my little guinea pig or my tortoise. I was under 10 years old. I know better now. But I have this relationship with the sprouting, not even the growing of the flower, but the sprouting of these seeds. Listening, communing. So anyway, I've been documenting it. You can have a look on Instagram or one of the Facebook pages if you're interested in that. But I'm doing it hydroponically, so there's no soil. So they're like my fish, and I tend to them every day. I'm not quite sure what to feed them yet. I'm listening, Right. So anyway, the sprouting, the mystic truth. And it's interesting that the lotus, the literal lotus flower is coming into my field, and I'm intimately tending and creating this relationship with these seeds. So as it sprouts, the sprout, which may grow into a plant, but if you think about a tree seed, like an acorn or a eucalyptus tree for those Australians, the eucalyptus, as it grows, different religions, different lineages of yoga and science, yoga is a science, philosophy, whatnot. Every modality is going back to that seed that points. So truth-seeking, a dedication, a devotion, we might say. So devotion is a word that's been coming up regularly, in different chats and sessions. First-hand connection with a higher power, something greater than yourself, or what seems greater than yourself. Because anything that creates a separation is not what we're talking about. So these are sort of consistent themes in what's a mystic, but it is that direct. So mystic path, working with me is that direct connection. Some of you can see, it's going direct. When we go direct, we receive all other ways of knowing. And one way is not better than another necessarily. They're all on the path. And you may have heard me say that, and the religions talk about this too. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, right? Seek first direct connection with the beloved, and all else will come to you, or however those texts may say it. But this is my experience. I wasn't taught trance. I wasn't taught mediumship. I wasn't taught all these ways of seeing apparitions in front of me and getting information and writing and painting and having all this poetry come out and, whatnot, right? Is it me? How did I develop that wisdom? I didn't. It's not mine, yet it is. Does that make sense? In some ways, there's a hope that it doesn't, because it's outside of the mind. It's outside of the mind. So the mystic is achieving sacred or divine experiences. The experiences that transcend in some way our belief systems. So think about those of you that were in Regulate to Elevate, or the Cloud, or even Psi, right? Experiences, those programs. Right? Siran Ishnan, my spiritual name. Cleansing, clearing, Ishnan. That's a water therapy. Cleansing, clearing, karma for the remembrance of God. Now, Simran, as I was telling somebody yesterday that is watching, is not just one, I'm going to hold you in prayer or heart. When we say, I'm going to hold you in heart, I'm going to pray for you. If you're having an operation, or someone's passed over, or you're sick, or you're just having a really tough time, and someone says, I'm going to pray for you. Simran is, and when we develop the remembrance, it's not a once-off remembrance. It's a remembering. It's a R-ing. Lisa mentioned R-ing up there. Hey, Tanya. Beautiful to see you. R-ing. Doing, being, R-ing. R-ing is a continual unconditional love. When I say I will hold you in heart, it is. So the mystic is working towards that connection with what I call the beloved, because that's my intimate connection. It's a love affair. It's devotion. It's what we call bhakti, service through love, in unconditional love, which means we have a relationship with fear and love. Because love and fear are within unconditional love. And so we have a ministry, the House of Unconditional Love, that talks more about that. But here, I'm saying we're bypassing our intellect. We're dissolving. We're not dissolving. Dissolving is not the right word, because that would be a fear-based word, right? Get rid of. No, we're not getting rid of. We're creating a new relationship with our fears that come fear of love. Love and fear in themselves are just love and fear. But when we fear fears, so we fear we have not enough money, lack of whatever, so we fear survival. There's a survival fear. Not fear survival, although some of you may fear living, right? Fear surviving. You may not want to be here anymore. So the mystic experience, linking into that, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, is very much to do with healing. We have, I was going to say infinite, but many, many research on, or papers, developments. It's actually, I research myself, this is what I'm writing about. Healing. What is healing? How do we heal? Belief comes into it. Prayer comes into it. Well, what is belief? What is prayer? And then it gets to what? The mystical experience. And it's the mystical experience that heals. So even if you're doing plant medicine and whatnot, which I don't and I never have because I don't need to. I have those connections and that experience, and my I'll just throw in my DMT, which is a natural occurring, I guess, part of our human in our brain, right? But some people, we have a build-up of DMT in our brains, in our head, and some of you diminish that through the day. Some of us don't. And so there are many people that will take DMT, there's different types, for psychedelic experiences. Yeah? You can develop that naturally. How? Through the mystical experiences, through the mystic path, through the teachings, through the, the practices that we share. So Lisa's saying, it feels like coincidence of future happenings of the divine. Feels like a coincidence of future happenings of the divine. Are you in a mystical experience, Lisa? Because you're sounding very poetic. Or is it just my view? Right? So I'm going to read her messages all together. I'm R-ing better now. Magical experience to go with your desire and or vibration. Awareness of the experience. It feels like coincidence of future happenings of the divine. Lisa, are you R-ing right now? Because you sound like you are. That's beautiful. Yeah. So I'm passionate about this topic because it's not a topic to me, it's my life. It's how I live. Right? And can you see, those of you that may be new, may not, but my background in the Defence Force and in trauma therapy and working with the most oppressed and traumatized humans on the planet. And moving into like the question of how is what I am or how I am helpful in the world? It's a real question. Have any of you had that? So what? I can connect and see and feel and sense and know, taste, smell, touch, energy. So what? How's that helpful? So what, that we can speak to past over loved ones? How is that helpful? So what, we can commune with greater aspects, higher or greater, more power-filled aspects of ourself through trance channeling, through trance mediumship. So what? How's that helpful? How have any of those helped you? How is sitting in grace? Those of you that sit in grace, or sit with me in grace. Actually, this Friday we have to change the time, but we'll be sitting in grace. So I'll put up I'll let you know when that will be. But if you want to come and sit in the ocean of love and mercy of the beloved and experience that is a mystical experience. And by the research, and there's a lot, you can just Google it, but I'm here to tell you also, over 20 years, a mystic will give you a direct experience. What is a direct experience? direct experience of another aspect of yourself, how you can shift your state of consciousness. Which state? Well, that depends what we're either working towards, what you want to experience, how you want to experience that. Some of you actually this Friday would be after grace. We're doing the beginnings, right? The beginnings is the not the beginning, but you can be a beginner. We are going to experience directly some of what we're speaking about. The very beginning of the journey to connect directly with higher aspects, or when I say higher, it could be, guides. It's not so much mediumship, but we may touch on that. Channeling, writing, getting information. It's not, so Lisa mentioned magic before. It's not magic, although it feels magical. But when we're in this particular state, well, there's many, but if we start with one, right? If we're going into, and this is what we learn, these different states of how in mediumship, evidential mediumship, or any type mental mediumship, right? How you're connecting to spirit. In trance, how you're connecting to spirit. In inspiration, how you're connecting with spirit. In trance healing, how you're connecting with spirit, right? All these different ways, because where you meet with spirit is different. Like how you are moving and that energy is moving. Does that make sense? In the class, I draw it, I give you, I explain it, I teach it. But my point here is that there are different types of connections which give you different information. Some you are more involved in, right? Some you're more involved in, like when I scan your energy, which I do multiple times every day for numerous people in service, right? There's many people with a lot going on, brain surgery yesterday, all sorts of stuff. So what does a mystic do? Do they sit on a hill and do their work? Yes, they do. That's what I do. But I'm contemporary. I'm in the world as well. So how do you live your life in connection? Do you have a connection? Contemplate that. And the question that I've been asking over the last few months really is, what do you believe? Because we can't really get to here if there's, no belief. But if you're watching here, there's something. Because what I'm saying is, you have belief until you have a knowing. And when you have a direct experience, a mystical experience, when that's direct, no one can take it away from you except yourself. It's an aspect of yourself, the ego, that will say, that didn't happen. Who do you think you are? We have had the most amazing, I've been doing this for 30 years, sitting, working with humans in distress of all different ways, all different ages, nationalities, belief systems, whatnot. Sitting with them in that presence, and they feel that. Some even to tears. And think about this for yourself. When you come out of that, because when you come out of that, it's because there's a habitual patterning, and this links to our beliefs and conditioning, our early childhood, our adaptive strategies, our protections, all the things from, early life onwards that are shielding us, trying to keep us safe. And what I'm talking about, majority of humans aren't very familiar with. Or if they are, they've had horrific experiences. And I know that because I've had to re-establish some of those people's connections with the beloved, right? Because mediums or intuitives have given them so much BS and fear-based information, often so they come back and they can make more money. And that used to set me off. Oh man, I used to get really like, Argh. I accept it now. That is part of the love and fear in the world. However, the education, the sharing of, the evidence, not just saying, oh yes, your loved one's in this in-between space, they're stuck and you need to do this to have it. Yeah, be it. If anyone says that to you, and I always say that, walk away. Just walk away. Walk away. You need evidence. Evidence, not just people sprouting information, right? This is why I'm a researcher. I share my direct experience, but I also research it. So, where are we at? So Lisa's just said yes, but I'm not sure. I think she's just saying yes, she's ahhing. Okay. So let's carry on with why I said I was here. So I guess you get the gist or the idea of a mystical experience, what a mystic may be or identify as. How you can write your papers, how you can write, or not even write, but get insight, inspiration for yourself. Is that connection? So, speaking of connection, I just felt my belly saying, I'm hungry. I got a new cup from my daughter, stepdaughter. So let's move, because we're over time, but how it links to healing. How do you think, or what beliefs or experiences do you have, or even thoughts around how a mystical experience could be healing? How could it heal? And just, I would say don't overthink it. Challenge yourself to just write a bunch of words in the chat and just see. So while you do that, I'll just keep sharing with you, right? That and even just feel into it while I'm speaking. Like just feel. When I say feel, it's not like you have to experience anything, but your nervous system is picking up the information coming to you and around you. So you can just swim in that as I'm speaking. And I touched on early developmental trauma, right? Attachment, attunement, bonding, and as we grow, the beliefs and how we're encoded, those sorts of things. And how, there's a lot of information, and I've even taught on it a few times, around trauma and enlightenment, or those aspects of awakening. So awakening isn't enlightenment or full self-realization, and that certainly isn't liberation, right? So that's another thing. But awakening experiences where you're seeing a little more clearly. You're seeing through a clearer lens, right? So you've cleansed and cleared, right? Enough of that trauma lens to be able to see a little brighter, a little clearer. And that's continual. We can also have psychotic experiences, which can often be misdiagnosed mystical or spiritual experiences. I've seen that in my work. That was actually many years ago, 20 years ago, it was one of my jobs, that we had the police and we had the CAT team, which was a crisis mental health team that would be called when somebody was going through a psychotic experience in the community. So other people may have been at risk. And those two, the police and the CAT team, would call me to go in first. That was one of my jobs. To de-escalate, to see, because when you're working in, so I was an Indigenous advocate, as well as I had multiple jobs all the time, and I still do, right? So I worked with the homeless community, and often because a lot of the homeless community were part of the children's parents or extended family that were in care. So if I was working with the child's trauma, I worked with the extended family. And if they were homeless, then we'd be working on how helping them get the resources, get housing, get settled, get their addictions or whatever was going on that created the homeless state. Do you see what I mean? It wasn't just working. You never worked with just the one, but you worked with the whole. Right? It's everything's connected. So where was I going with that? Psychotic experiences. So I understand your psychotic experiences very well, and how to. No, I won't go there because it's not something that I want you to be doing. So what is the difference? How do you know? Right? Is it that the mental health crisis is a spiritual crisis? Think of depression and the disconnect that depression or even anxiety can create. If there's a separation, that to me, the separation, anything that creates separation is, I'm going to say it this way. I could say evil, but I don't believe in evil, and that's up to you whether you do. Because if we look at heaven and hell, technically this earth is the hell realms if we've got heaven and hell, right? But that's another story. Don't get caught up on it. But sin is missing the mark, right? So if you've got a goal and you're going ahead and you get caught off that path, that's missing the mark, the goal. So, right, sin. So if you are going along and you have a mystical experience and you don't understand it and no one around you understands it and it makes you scared, then that fear or fear of love, so if it's a mystical experience, it can be the fear of love, because you go, oh my goodness, what is this I'm seeing or experiencing? Because many of you won't have apparitions, but some of you will. I have all my whole life. And I thought I was mad, but I've been checked out. I'm good. I was told, if you think you're mad, if you think then you're not, right? Because, anyway. But I would say, the deities and whatnot that have stood in front of me just like you, right there. You'll read about it in my book one day. Actually, I'll probably never write it, but in my I always go, yeah, I'll write that one day, but yeah, I don't know. My point being that if you were seeing things, or even, seeing dark shadows at the end of your bed, or seeing passed over loved ones at the corner of your eye, or hearing, or whatever, that can scare you if you've got no reference. If you've got no reference. If you have a reference, or you have a guide or a mentor that can say, oh, that's this, and let me help you either navigate that so that it's not just coming in whenever it wants, whatever that is, right? That energy can come in and out, right? How to turn it on and off, how to be in directorship of it, how to be in your power. Right? Because we're bombarded, and as we're moving through in these times, more than ever, the human is becoming more and more sensitive. And there's reasons for that. And it's about navigating your sensitivity so that you're not spinning out when you go into a certain person's house, or you have to show up to a certain room that has fluorescent lights that spin you out, or the supermarket. Did you know? Oh, so doing mental health first aid, right? There's certain places that you will find the most breakdowns. Supermarket is the main one, where there's fluorescent lights. So if you go into a supermarket, there's all these flashing fluorescent lights, and there's an overstimulation of products and sounds and all the rest of it, right? So when I originally started intuitive studies, I don't know, some of you might have been in that. Remember, I would get you to sit in front of the supermarket and do a certain technique, right? And practice that before you went in, if you had anxiety, or, even if you were sensitive, right? So that you could, I guess, I'm not even into protection, strengthen. Because again, if you're protecting, what are you protecting from? So again, we're not into creating separation. We're about creating the connection, so that when you have that mystical experience, this is what heals in a nutshell. The knowing that there's more than what you are. There's something greater than you, yet that greater aspect is also part of you. You're all of it and none of it at the same time. It's a paradox, and the brain, the lower mind, can't comprehend that. It's cognitive dissonance. It's like the yes and no at the same time, and it can't. It's like love and fear. So everyone's going, I just want to love, 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 love. And you're not complete into unconditional love because the fear's left there, which is your attachment issues, your trauma, your stress, blah, 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 right? The things that scare you, but at a deeper level, they're the things encoded that trigger you unconsciously. When you have a mystical experience, it brings you to a place. So if you've done any of those programs with me, or just heard me on these lives, you come to a place where you can slow down your connection, right? Even just a breath, right? Take a breath in and a breath out. The only way that you can, as a human, part of this species, most of you, the only way, I won't say the only way, I'll say the most effective way to integrate the memories, right, that may have been, so if you've been traumatized, particularly, complex trauma, like, big T trauma, right? Not the little ones, although you can recover from those, but I'm talking, the ones that you feel you can never recover from. Well, you can. You can. I personally am living proof over and over and over, right? That just happened to be my experiences. Multiple traumas all through my life, right? And healing from them. So the way that the brain works, I'm not going to use all the fancy words, I'm just going to say it really quickly, but when we slow down, there's a part of our brain that gets the opportunity to bring in the part of the memory that has been separated because the human, maybe it's you, maybe it's me, wasn't able to integrate at the time. It was just too much. So there's almost like a layering of the memory, and parts of it are still sort of fragmented. So that's why we have dissociation, right? That's why we have these fractures and different aspects of self. They're not working fully together, all of them. And through a mystical experience and through that slowing down and that mindful inquiry, being curious, you'll hear me say it all the time, experiment, let's be curious, let's just see. Because for you and for you and for you and for you and for you, it will be different than it is for me or for you or for you or for you or for you, right? We're finding how we are responding, what our anatomy, our physiology, both physical and energetic, soul to spirit, is doing, right? So one size doesn't fit all. This is why we experiment with certain things. We're listening, we're watching, right? But that's slowing down. That's slowing down and bringing the body into it. The embodied the embodiment, I guess, is where we can start to bring all the parts of that memory, all the parts of the self back together. That's healing. So in psychology, psychiatry, and the mystical paths and the spiritual paths, it's the same thing. So if you dissociate, so going back to what I started to say, in early childhood we have these experiences and we tend to sort of just float and try to move away from it. I mean, there's parts of the vagus nerve, and it's to do with polyvagal theory, but again, keeping it simple, that we can go into to freeze, right? We want to sort of escape it, so we go into like a freeze response, and we want a shutdown, a freeze, feign death sort of thing. And we want to get to a place where we can relax, rest, digest. You've probably heard about the rest, digest, right? But the place where we're able to relate with others. And here's the key. I'm going to start wrapping it up. Here's the key. When we can't relate to others, we can't relate to anything. We're shut down. So the practice, like the mystic path, the practice of connecting, even if you're not connecting, but the practice of, that intention shifts your state of awareness, because that breath, it isn't, right? Because a mystic sees the beloved in everything. even inanimate objects, right? No separation. Now, you may not be there, but when you breathe, you feel a little more connected to something else. So when you're shut down, or when you're in a freeze response, if any of you have been in a freeze response, especially, if you're clients, and you remember how we come out of that, it's a slowing down, it's a creating safety. How do we create safety? Well, there's multiple ways to do that, but it's presence, accepting the fear. Okay, there's a freeze here. I'm not going to go, oh, I don't know what to do, right? I know what to do. I've been trained 30 odd years in trauma therapy, sensory-motor psychotherapy and whatnot, right? To gently connect in true presence, which is the mystical aspects of it, true presence, to create the safety so that your system starts to come back. And we can do that really quickly. Think about that connection, the freeze or the dissociation and the mystical experience. Because there's a lot of people wanting to go to get away. To go, just to get away. Oh, my back hurts. Breathe. Right, so what we're doing is we're connecting to all of it, the love and the fear, not just trying to go to the love. I mean, this brings to mind in the research I've done on myself, right? So, and many others, but looking at the energy through the biofield viewer, which is a research, it's a way of seeing your energy, and going into particular states. And you could see, for instance, if I had sinus, right, it'd be all, it'll show up, the different colors would show up on the screen. And as I go into certain states, it would disappear. I've got so much documentation because we worked on this for many, many years. And then when I come back in, so you can see what different states I'm in because we had different code, right? Because I know what state I'm in by what it feels like. Right? All right, I'm going into gamma now. Okay. So what does it look like when I'm in gamma? And what happens to whatever's happening, if it's somebody's legs or arms or whatever, but this is a particular one I remember. And it would disappear, but when I came back in, it would come back. Right? So you can change your state, but how do you keep it? How do you shift it? Do you see what I mean? It's like, I'm just going to go out, pop out for a moment so that I don't have to deal with this. But when I pop back in, oh, there you are. Oh, I turn around and there you are. Oh, there you are, my friend. Okay, this is why we do the fear. We unconditional love. We must, for that completeness, work on the love and the fear. So, great possibilities of healing for, depression, anxiety, and whatnot. And there's so much research on it, but physical, emotional, health, a sense of purpose and meaning, right? When we're depressed or when we're low or when we're lonely, it improves relationships. Expands your perspective, right? So you're sensing into new possibilities or new ways or greater connection, You feel a sense of unity, but, you know, it goes without saying, really. But the more that you are open to that, the more that you see, it's like those little, what I was mentioning earlier, those little seeds, where they're about this big, the lotus seeds, and my connection with them. And this may sound a bit out there, but you can start to practice this. Because I used to talk about this for years when I taught the Mystic Path, and which isn't available at the moment, but later in the year I may bring that back. But sitting and, I was going to say communing, well it is, but communing to me is practicing connecting to nature, but intimately, as in I'm looking at the trees out here, or even the ocean, or actually I'll see if I can show you. I used to make so many videos about this, but people would see it in real time. They'd come to my clinic in Australia, and it was in nature. It was like almost like a tree house type setting, but not quite. And they'd come into the clinic space, and you know, it's glass doors, so they could see down the paddock, all the birds and animals and critters and whatnot. And as we were working on them, how nature responded in a almost like an orchestra for them, but with them. Does that make sense? It's like when you start viewing, and I guess you'd need to know what viewing is. There's different types of viewing, but when you're viewing with a gentle gaze at a big tree, and you start to get into this gentle state of just being, right, relaxed. If you soften your eyes, we call it a dristi, but soften your gaze, and you're not looking at the leaves of the trees and whatnot, you're looking at the whole tree together. You can do it with the grass too. And let me know if you do try this, because if you've seen any of my art, right, and I was drawing last night because I was trying to explain a mystical experience. And so I tried to draw it, right? So that person saw all sorts of other things in that drawing, but anyway, right? I guess they got something out of it. But when you look at the trees and you look at the grass or whatever you're looking at in nature, you will see geometry. You will see the geometry. And when you look at the grass normally, you won't see it. And when you just gaze and go into this state of viewing, you will see the geometry. I'm telling you. So a lot of my contemporary art back in the day when I used to have exhibitions and whatnot were geometry. They were what I saw. And I just start drawing more of the newer sort of experiences and whatnot, so that I can share them with you rather than tell you. Because some of you may be having experiences that you have no idea what on earth you're experiencing. But that viewing, and the more that you do it, it may even become fluid, like there's a fluidity to it. So I'm not going to go any deeper than that, but if you have any of those experiences, let me know. Eventually, this is how nature speaks to you. And I don't know if you're still here, Tanya, but nature, she's a nature warrior, and has a lot of different programs and projects to support animals and nature. But when you build that connection and that way, you become more comfortable with that way of viewing. You feel it. There's no separation. I can remember students, I would tell them this and I'd be like, can you see it? The trees are speaking. They don't speak English. It's an energetic thing, right? And over time, as they developed their abilities, they would come to me or they would email me or they'd call me and say, oh my God, the tree spoke to me today. And I was like, because I can tell you, but you won't get it. You won't get it, right? It's an experience. Or when you're walking down the street or even sitting here, those of you, yesterday we had a session and I just kept saying, oh, the birds are here, the birds are here. Or this bird's here, that bird's here. Because every bird is a different frequency, is giving different information. It's not in English. So I'm acknowledging the presence. I'm saying, hey, oh, there you are, there you are. Just like I acknowledge fear, a trigger or something that, I feel physically, there you are. Oh, hey, old friend, how you doing? You gonna walk with me today? All right. I'm consciously aware that there's some fear there. Yeah. But while I push it away or while I just ignore what's around me, and that takes building the capacitor or capacitor, which is true, how you ratchet up or down the charge in your body and in your system. The capacitor, as if you were an electrical, you are an electrical system, but if you're like a power station, and that power station, the power, the energy, the electricity that's coming, or the voltage that's coming from that power station, it has to go through certain capacitors, or whatever they're called, right? You get the drift. I'll have to ask my daughter, she's an electrician, right? To feed that energy, so when we plug a cord into the socket, the power point in our wall, to turn on the computer, it doesn't kill us. It doesn't electrocute us. Do you understand? Even in our energetic system, our energy physiology, we have what's called the vortices that are outside the body, the 8 main vortices that feed into the chakras. The chakras are doing their thing, but they're ratcheting down to the 72,000 nadis, or energy pathways, in our physical and around our physical body. It is our energy body. We have 10 main energy bodies, spiritual bodies, right? There's so much. Just because you can't see it, possibly, doesn't mean it doesn't impact you and doesn't exist. You can't smell gas, or sometimes you can. I can. But you can't see gas, let's use that one, until it's lit. That's flame. But it can kill you. There's so many bacteria that you can't see with the naked eye, but are there. You can't see your blood light up, illuminate and sparkle like the stars on my wall when we're in grace, loving prayer for another. There's science on that now. That was my hypothesis like 15 years ago at university. And I said, I want to research myself and use myself as a guinea pig to show what I know, not from my intelligence, from my wisdom, right? Of how touch changes our blood and how this energy shifts our blood. And the reason why touch is because I worked with trauma and infants. I worked with all ages, but I was working with infants as well. And often those infants were abused or whatever. And we had this thing, and I think it's still, how they talk in those areas, of good enough parenting, right? Not hitting, not hurting, not a certain type of touch. how that impacts the blood. Or too light a touch or no touch. Because we have so much research on children not being picked up, not being touched, how our skin needs to be touched for our the dendrites, the brain to not actually grow, but also prune the connections in the brain. I saw something recently that was interesting to me, might be interesting to you, that the these connections, these dendrites and whatnot in the brain, and they sort of look like when you take a photo or whatever, like veins, I guess, but they've got these little bits coming off them, like roots, like a root system, like very fine roots. If I was looking at my lotus little plants, they've got little roots now. Okay. There's somebody with I guess something like autism, for instance, just using that as an example, how those little fibers, little root systems don't get pruned off. As we grow, we have a pruning. So I've got photographs. I used to teach brain trauma and brain development for children, so to parents and teachers and social workers and whatnot, right? And I'd have these photos of how the brain prunes itself. Certain ages, there's all these growth, and then it starts to prune what it's no longer needing or using or whatever. And at 25, we've got a fully mature brain, right? It's not till 25, around there. But these let's just call them roots of the brain, they're not pruned the same way. And so those people with autism, or, even I would say, I wonder what, I've seen my brain a few times, but sensitivities, because there's so many little connections still there, that there's an overload of information. It's too loud. It's too bright. I can feel everything. So all of this. Anyway, that was just interesting because it was something I saw a couple of days ago. That sort of, it's more contemporary, but it fits what my past research was showing. So we can have sensitivities in those ways, and we can build our sensitivity through, I guess, spiritual technology. But I guess what I want to say is that many people have fear about being oversensitive or too sensitive, right? So we can also build, this brings me to boundaries, right? Which relates to the trauma. So I know I've jumped around a bit, but we can build boundaries or create boundaries. Like I just turn it off. But there's ways, and I didn't know I could until much later in life. What I was seeing and feeling, I would feel everything. I would sit next to you and feel all your ailments. But that's why I was good medical intuitive, because I would just sit with you or talk to you and I'd feel all your stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to. If I'm at the beach or at the shop or on a train or on an airplane or whatever, I don't care about you. I love you, unconditional, but I don't need to feel what's going on for you. I don't need to see. So you know what? No, stop. So I can do that now. Right? I've learned that we can have boundaries. Now, when we're younger, or we've been through a lot of trauma, our boundaries can be very, what's that word? not fluid, but porous. That's the word. Porous. Isn't that a good word? Like, think about it. I could see it. It's like an egg, right? The eggshell. It's like porous. Like if you put it into dye, it sucks up the dye, right? So the boundaries aren't strong. Now, you don't want to be over-bounded because that's shut off from everything. Unless it's for that moment. Okay, I'm going to sleep now. Shut down. Put on the cone of silence. Nothing's getting in. I'm going to sleep. Right? Turn them back on. All systems, right? At 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whenever you, right? Or you say, okay, if you work with spirit, come closer now. This is what we're doing. Because for me, I'm always in connection. It's not like I have to sit for half an hour. It's like even now, before I came on, I'm like, all right, well, we're doing a little teaching today. This is what it's about. So may my words be the word, right? For those that hear with their physical ears and those able to hear with the ear of the heart are able to receive what they're here to receive, not what I want them to receive. What do you, beloved, how are you going to utilize me today? Okay. So I don't know how this is going to be received. And I have no hang up about it because I have that placement of I'm here as that instrument, right? As long as my ego doesn't come in and out, which probably does because I'm human. Right? So the boundaries, we'll end with the boundaries. So there's lots of ways that you can heal, right? Your behaviors, problem solving, increased creativity, poetry, like it's all lowering anxiety. I mean, the list is endless. But why we have this boundary issues, because when we have trauma, we generally have boundary, we've got to navigate the boundaries. And there's not just one boundary, right? So remember in Cloud, way back, we started talking about all the different boundaries within the self, how we bound or don't, what boundaries serve us, what don't, right? And what ones we might want to keep or shift or change. Well, when we've had trauma, our boundaries are impacted. So think about that. If you're a sensitive, right? Many of us that have been traumatized are sensitive, right? We're sensitive. Why? Because we're not as bounded as most people. Or we're bounded in a different way, in different ways. We may be in certain areas very bounded. It's like, I don't trust anyone, right? That was me. Oh, I'm as friendly as friendly. Like, I was always like, oh yeah. But you couldn't get close. Couldn't get real close. So I was friends with everybody, but, and that's a common thing with trauma, right? Or you shut down completely. So it's not to say that, it's nothing wrong with any of this, right? Don't judge it. Whatever your boundaries are, it's just how it is. But be conscious of it and go, okay, what part of that would I like to shift and change, if any? Is it serving me? Yes. Well, beautiful. If not, okay. What is it that you could do? How could learning about the different states of consciousness and how that is looking at, how do I want to word this? So the different states of consciousness are how and why you would shift the energetic bounds, right, in different ways for different information. So you may not want to be a psychic, you may not want to be a mystic or a medium or a intuitive, right? I don't know why you wouldn't want to, but you may not want to. But you may want to walk through the world and not be bombarded by information that isn't necessarily yours in that moment, although everything is, right, on that other level. But let's just go. Oh, we're human. We're walking this earth. We're grounded. We're, and we meet somebody and they impact us energetically. You don't need to keep walking with that. But you also don't want to shut down to the beautiful music of another human either. So there's these, okay, where's the boundary? How is my boundary serving me? Those sorts of things. Can you see the connection between trauma and having difficulty or having a challenge with boundaries and mystical experiences or, psychic experiences, like seeing, feeling more than you might want to in the field or of another, or even if you walk into a room and you're feeling what was just there. I used to do that. I used to walk into houses and just, they'd say, something's happened in this house and we're seeing weird, wonderful things, and I'd go in there and I'd find where it was and I'd be able to say what happened there. But back in the day, that's, what I used to do, and then we'd clear the house. But, right, most people wouldn't feel that. But the people in the house, it was usually friends or friends of friends, right? They were sensitives. So they felt it or they would hear it, right? And I guess talking about that sort of energy is for another day. If you're interested, let me know about the difference between an intelligent spirit and an unintelligent energy. We might call a ghost, but to me everything's energy. Anyway, that's pretty interesting too. Let me just feel if I've connected all the bits. So can you see how connecting to something greater than yourself can be healing? Have I connected the points enough today? I could write a book on this, so I've probably gone around and round. And can you see how there's and it's why I still do the trauma work. Students, clients, they will still be connecting into those deeper core parts of the self. Right? So it's that real earth work and the heaven work, because we are bringing heaven and earth together, which is the human's role, in my opinion. We are the bridge between heaven and earth. Bridge between love and fear. We bring love and fear together to unconditional love. Hello, Alexa. Haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, awesome. Yeah. All right, we're going to go over to our inner circle. We probably won't be there too long because I've gone over time. So if I haven't brought it back around to every point, let me know in the comments and I'll go back and have a read. And we're here every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. I'm not sure what that is for you, but the first 3 Tuesdays of the month. And if you've got a topic, you want to have a chat about something, let me know and we'll see how we can fit that in. Today I'm bringing it up because this Friday we have our first live teaching. What time is it? Do you remember? 3 p.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. So for those of you in Australia, it will be Saturday. And I'm not sure who's watching from where. I think, Alexa, are you still in England? Yeah, some from America. People from all over the world. But If you'd like to join us, you still can. And I think only those of you that are watching are from Essex, being crazy busy. No worries. If you want to join us, so the beginnings is a trance channeling class, but really what it is learning how to come together with an aspect of the self and shift your state of consciousness. And I teach you about the different states, teach you different ways of getting information so you can practice. So we practice in this small group. So I'm mentoring and coaching, guiding, right? And then you get some homework, some things to try if you would like to. But you're feeding back to me what you're experiencing. So as we go along, I can shift and change things specifically for you, because everybody will be at different stages of development, right? And that's how we work. So those of you that have never done anything like this before, there's space for you. Those of you that are very advanced but you want to see how you connect now, or how I teach it, come in, there's space for you. Because whoever shows up in that container, you know, it informs the energy of the container. It's just beautiful how that works. So for those of you watching right now, because I've just realized I haven't changed the price. So we had an early bird. And everyone's like, oh. We had an early bird at, I think it was 200. So it's over 8 weeks, 222, I think it was, or something like that. But it's supposed to be 300, 330 or something like that is the general cost. But I have forgotten to put the price back to normal. So good for you if you want to join us, because I won't be able to do that right now because I've got to go over to our inner circle group, which I think all of you are in it. So so if you want that, look, wherever you're watching, scroll down and you'll see a link to the next live teaching, the beginnings, or something like that. And click on that and it'll give you all the information. If you're interested, you can come and join us. So it's live every other week, right? So this week it's live and we're practicing, and you'll be learning certain things to practice. Send info on UK times. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll have to look that up. I can't remember. So, yeah, I'll get in touch if you're interested. And yes, it's, you know, I mean, it's, the lives are practicals. So, you know, a recording, because you're in breakout groups, there wouldn't be a recording, right? So you'll get the theory, and I will give you practices. So if you can't attend all the lives, then you can still practice. And we have it's called a Slack group, right? It's how we connect. So I post them in there, and some of you already told me, you know, some of what you're practicing. So, you know, you can practice there and say, this is what came up, these are the questions I have, or, you know, I didn't like that one, I like this one better, this is what I'm asking. Because I give you different practices, because not all of you will like all of them. And so you choose the ones, yeah, I see you. You got your favorites, and you may not use any of those ones. Okay, you may not use any of those ones, but it's a starting point. If you've never done anything, it's a starting point. So you've got a couple of different practices to do to start, and then, you know, we build on that. And then when you feed back, if you didn't get anything or you're struggling with connection, then I mentor you and I support you and I assist you to get your connection, right? So you're all at different levels, different spaces. And if you don't want to be a trance channeler, that's fine. Think a bit more around being curious about how these different states of consciousness work, and how do I work? Like, what's this in my system? I think it's awesome. I mean, that I'm a nerd, and I'm so curious about the human as a species. So that's my role in the world. So yeah, you can check out that. If you can't find it or you're not sure, on Instagram, just send me a direct message, and on any of the other places that you're watching from, you'll see the link. You should see the link there. All right. So on that note, I think we'll wrap up. I went well over time. I'm like, yeah, I'll only do half an hour. Yeah, right. But thank you for being here and supporting that. And you know, if you're interested in knowing more, send me a message. If you're wanting to participate in the next live class, then let me know, or check out that link. And I will be changing the price, but I can't do it until tonight. So if you're watching this before tomorrow, then you'll get like $100 off or something, I think it is. What else do I have to tell you? And we also have the House of Unconditional Love, the first 3 Sundays of the month. And so if you're watching this from any of my Facebook groups, you'll probably see where you can go for that. But if you don't know, you can message me, and I'll send you the link for that as well. That's free. So this is all the free stuff. Okay. Are we complete? Yes, we are. All right, so I'll say goodbye to Instagram for now, and see you next time. And for those of you on the inner circle, if you want to have a little break, I don't know if you have, we won't be on long, but maybe we'll do a Q&A and just see what's coming up, however I can support you. And for those of you watching on Restream, I better shut you off as well, just for today. But may the blessings be, and much love to you all. And may you experience some form of mysticism, commune with the beloved, even if it's just looking at the tree, looking at my bowl of lotus seeds. And I was sitting there and I was looking at the reflection, and I could see how we call it cymatics, so how the sounds create the patterns, and the birds were coming in, and then we had minor little earthquakes because, you know, I live on a volcano, active volcano, but and you could see it. So cool. And I didn't video it or take photos because I was just experiencing it, but maybe I will, because it's pretty cool. But, you know, easy, simple ways to just practice communing with what's around you, that physically. And then at some point there will be that shift. It becomes a fluidity, because we commune with the mother first, which is a fluidity, the water, and then it goes to the fire, father, which creates steam and takes you higher.